Hey guys, it's Martika, and this is the long awaited so long for Simplicity 9679. Here we go, you guys. This came out last year, last fall, I believe. And I can't even remember when it came out, but it was definitely last year. And I told you guys that I was going to do a sew along to this. And I did do the sew along to this. But by the time I did get it finished, it was in the dead of summer, and I was not putting this out then at that point. So if you had been waiting and waiting and waiting and anticipating, you guys, I apologize. I really do. I try to get things done, in a timely fashion, but as you know, life happens, my husband, he was going through everything that he was going through health wise. And, we just had to put a halt on it. So, yes, I did do the sew along for this. Now, what I will tell you before this begins is that I wasn't crazy about using this particular fabric with it, and I didn't pay close attention because this doesn't have the amount of stretch that I would want. I'm just being transparent with you here. So I would honestly say make sure that the knit that you are using does have the right amount of stretch to it, because I did not measure this on my gauge down here like I should have. I just kind of went with it since I had made it before in the rib knit, not thinking. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and enjoy this sew along, and I hope that this has made it easy for you to just go ahead and get this cute little top sewn up for this fall, and let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. So the first thing we are going to do is pin our upper front to our front piece. We're going to be matching the centers and the large dots. Now, I do have this turned over so that the wrong side is facing, because we are going to be pinning the right sides together, but lifting them in a different way. So I'm not turning this over and then facing the right sides. As you can see, I have both pieces laying face down right side so that both upper sides is the wrong side that you see. And we are going to go ahead and pin these together. Now you should have marked a large dot. And if you marked yours light like I did, just go ahead and find that dot, because that's where you're going to be starting your stitches from. So just go ahead and pin those together, find your notches, and pin them together. And if you are like me, you made just a really tiny slit in your center front, just so that you can make sure that you are getting this pin exactly where you need it. Now that's about where I'm going to stop at, because we are not sewing the edges of these together. We are just pinning and keeping it together, and we're getting ready to take this to the sewing machine and sew this from that large dot, back stitching at the large dot so that you can reinforce that stitch, and then we're going to sew it all the way to the end. Okay, so we got the right sides facing, got everybody all pinned together, and I'm going to start from my dot here. I'm going to back stitch at my dot, and I'm going to sew it all the way to the end. And my sewing machine setting is at the 2.5 stitch line. So we're going to do this at 5/8 of an inch. Now for these two pieces, these are the back pieces, and I did not show attaching these together, pinning them together, because it is literally the exact same way as we did the two front pieces, the upper front to the upper to the front and the upper back to the back. And you're going to do the exact same thing. The only difference is, of course, you have a double notch on the back so that you know what is what. Now, the difference is I'm going to start from the end of the top this time instead of stitching down to the end. I'm going to start from the end, but I am still going to back stitch at the dot when I am done, because we need it to be reinforced in that particular area. Okay, so now that we've gotten our upper front stitch to the front and our upper back stitch to the back, now we are going to stitch our shoulder seams. Now this is a little bit different because you're going to have two sections of the shoulder seams to stitch. We're going to do the front to the back, of course, and we're going to go ahead and pin these together. And this is a bit easier because, of course, this is only one-sided. So you're going to face your right sides together. And we are going to pin. You can start from the wide side or the shorter side like I am here. It's up to you, but you are going to make sure that you match your notches together and go ahead and pin starting at your notches. Put as many pins as you need to keep your pieces even and together. Then we're going to do the wider side of the shoulder seams. We're going to match the notch together and then pin it. Now at 5/8 of an inch, we are going to sew this section together and we are going to sew this section together. Now we're going to press those seams open just as we did with the other seams that we did, and then we are going to work on the front opening that cut out on the front of this top. Okay, so now that we have gotten those two shoulders stitched together, we've pressed our seams open. Now we are going to narrow hem this opening. And then what we're going to do is we are going to stitch starting from one end. We're going to square off that end, stitch all the way down, square off the other end and stitch all the way around. So in order to narrow hem, the way that I do it is basically I use my already pressed out seam allowances as my guide pretty much. So the hem is already there for you. And what I do is I use and I go and I take this hem, and you can start at the seams. That's what I normally do, but just to show you how you can use this as a gauge, you take that amount of your seam allowance, you fold it there, and then you just fold the end inside, meeting the other end, and then you pin. Now if you have clips, you can use the clips also, so whichever is easiest for you. But I'm going to go ahead and narrow hem all the way around, and then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. Okay, everybody, so this is the part of this top that could be a little bit challenging, but it's not really a challenge. It's really, really simple. So you have your opening narrow hemmed all the way around, just like I showed you. And what we're going to do, we are going to start at one of your top corners here. Now, where this stitching begins, you want to get close to that, but you want to go a little, just a little bit past there. And we are going to start a little bit further over so that we can make sure that we are squaring this off. Now, what you want to do, you are going to stitch very close to the edge there. Okay, there is no particular seam measurement on this. You just want to stay close to the edge. Make sure that your fabric stays turned in for your narrow hem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, and if you have a ton of pins in yours, be very careful so that you don't drop any and so that you definitely don't stick yourself. So I'm going to take and turn this under my machine, and where that opening begins, I'm going to go just a little past there, and I'm going to put my needle down as close to the edge as possible, but definitely enough to get a secure fit there. So I'm going to lower my needle, and then I'm going to stitch straight across because we are squaring it off at the edges. And just take your time. This is not a rush. And you're going to get close to that other edge. And I went a little bit past, so I'm going to back stitch to get back to where I need to be. If that happens to you, just do the same thing. Now, without raising my needle, I'm going to lift up my presser foot. And I'm going to turn this so that it squares off nicely. And I am going to start stitching on this edge. Make sure you don't hit any of your pins because that could definitely break your needle. If you need to go slow, okay?
And depending on how many pins you put in yours determines how many times you have to stop.
Now, as we get close to the other corner here, don't forget we're going to just go just a little bit past and we are going to square this off. So I'm going to slow down. Once I get past that corner there just a little bit, I'm going to lift my presser foot without lifting my needle, and I'm going to turn so that I can do a straight stitch across. Lower your presser foot and go straight across to the edge of the other side, just like that. Then I'm going to lift my presser foot again without lifting my needle, and I'm going to turn this fabric all the way around until I am at the other side where I have pinned down my narrow hem, and I'm going to lower that presser foot. We're going to sew all the way to the other side till we meet up with the first corner that we started on. Okay, so you all, this part is very important to do. And if you are following your instructions, you will see. So where you finished off where you squared off your corners, you're gonna need to go in and clip those seam allowances right above your stitching, but definitely make sure that you do not go into your first stitching that you did. So right above your squared off stitching, you're going to go and let those seams relax a bit. So we're just going to clip. I'm just going to make a little clip like that, okay, so that this opening is not tugging on the actual seam allowance of the front and back pieces where they are attached. So you're going to do that on both sides of each corner. So we're done there. And as you can see, these are going to be open seams. These are released from your narrow hem there. All right, turn this over, do the same thing to the other corner. right above your squared off stitching, but not going into your middle stitching there. You're just going to clip just to release that seam. Same thing on the other side. Be sure that you are not clipping through your actual top there. Okay, and that's all. And believe it or not, you are almost done with this top. My thread tried to hang on there. All right, so next you're going to do something very, very, very familiar because this is necessary. You are going to stitch your side seams together. So you're going to take your side seams, right sides facing each other. You're going to match up your seams, okay? Your front seam to your back seam, or however you have it laid out, your back seam to your front seam. But you want to make sure that these seams are matching up. You definitely want to make sure that your notches are matching up. It's very, very important, okay? So you're going to do that to this side, and then we're going to stitch going straight down, and then you're going to do that to the other side also. The other side, you don't really have any seams that's matching up, so that's the difference between this side and this side. So this side, you're just basically going to make sure that your notches are together, and then you're going to pin. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine using 5/8 of an inch. Sew straight down one side and then straight down the other side. Okay, so as you can see, you have two different types of sleeves. So you have your regular sleeve that looks with the looks as normal as we're used to seeing it, with the rounded edge up top. So what you're going to do is fold that in half, right sides facing, match up the notch, and you're going to pin all the way down. And this is your inner portion of your sleeve. Okay, so once you get this pinned all the way down from top to bottom, then you are going to take it to your sewing machine, and you're going to stitch it from top to bottom. Okay, and you are actually going to repeat this on the other sleeve also. Now, as you can see, this particular sleeve does not have the rounded edge, but it has more of a dip in it, or a whatever you want to call it, a cutout. Okay, however, you're going to do the same thing. This sleeve is for the side that drops off of the shoulder. So you're going to take and you're going to fold this side in half also. You're going to match up your notches. You're going to pin that. And if you don't need to pin all the way down, that's fine. You can also hold it together and sew. But you're going to take it from up top at 5/8 of an inch, you all, and take it and sew all the way down. Then you're going to press your seams open as we have been doing throughout this whole process. And then we're going to go ahead and attach our sleeves. So go ahead and get that done, and then we'll be back when it's time to attach them. Okay, so now that we have gotten our sleeves finished, what we are going to take and do is we are going to work on the right sleeve, okay? So the right sleeve is this one with the curve that we are used to seeing, and we are going to turn it right side out, okay? And then working with the top on the wrong side, we're going to drop that sleeve right in. So the way that you know which side you're going to be working on, remember I told you that the sleeve with the cutout is going to be on the side that drops off the shoulder. We're going to turn that one out too. So you might as well go ahead and do that. and then just set that aside. So this is the sleeve that's going to go on this side, but the side that does have the opening here is going to be your full sleeve. As you can see, you have a total encasing here. So you're going to take this sleeve and you're going to drop this inside so that the right sides are facing. And you are going to match up your seams on the inside of your top and the inside of your sleeve itself, and go ahead and pin. This is the seam under your arm. And you're going to take and go all the way around, and you're going to go ahead and match up your notches at this point. I like to get my notches matched up first on both sides. You also have dots that you transferred from your pattern, so you're going to make sure that you are pretty much matching those up also. Now this one is a double notch. This one I did in a single notch. I'm pretty sure that it's most likely a double notch on the pattern. I just evidently missed it somewhere. So just go ahead and just match it up evenly if you do the same thing. So the top where you have a dot marked, or you might have cut a little slit. I don't know what happened here, but evidently I clipped it in some way. Luckily I didn't go too far because the stitching will cover all of that up. But you're going to go ahead and just stitch it all the way around. I'm sorry, not stitching. We're not pinning yet. We're not stitching yet. We're pinning. So go ahead and just get it pinned all the way around. Make sure that your dots are matching where you need them to match. Make sure that you are getting a good fit in. The plus side about sewing with knit is that you can a lot of times stretch it to where you need it to be. Okay, so I've gotten that pinned all the way around, and what we are going to do is we are going to stitch all the way around. We're going to start at our underarm seam and we're going to stitch it all the way around. If you need to base it first, you can, as the instructions say do. I usually do not, so you can go ahead and stitch if you're comfortable with that. And then it tells you to stitch again at 1/8 of an inch away from that first stitching, going in towards the seam allowance. And then after that, you are going to take and you're going to trim your seam down, just right below your notches. That's going to be close to that second stitching, but not too close and not all the way through. But that second stitching is literally just going to give you some reinforcement. Now, I will be honest with you and tell you that sometimes I don't do this. It depends on what type of fabric I am working with. But just to let you know that that is what the instructions tell you to do. So if you are not comfortable with your stitching and them holding, then go ahead and do it exactly what it says. It's exactly as it says. And then you're going to do your other sleeve the exact same way. So with this sleeve, it's a little bit different. As you can see, we have a total opening here. So you don't have any curved areas to work on. So we're just going to take our sleeve and we're going to drop it inside of our top. Okay, so you see that where you have your cutout here, like your underarm here, that's where it ends at the corners there. Same action happening here. So we're just going to match that up. Going to reach underneath and kind of pull that down. Then I'm going to match up my seams, and I'm going to pin. And I'm just pinning after I match up my notches. You can see I got my double notches done over here, so that lets you know I just missed the one on the other arm sleeve. And definitely match up your corners. This is going to be the easier sleeve to sew because you don't have to go all the way around. You're just going to the corners of this one. Match up your notch on the other side. Just like that. Let's match up those corners a little bit better. There we go. They may not be perfect because they're a little bit of a different shape at the very corner, but we want to get them as close as possible. Just make sure that those notches stay together. All right, there we go. Put one more pin there because I may have a little extra of that corner sticking out, and that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine and sew our sleeves onto our top. Okay, so sewing this at 5/8 of an inch, we are going to start with the underarm seam that we began to match up on this sleeve. And be sure, I kind of feel as I go to make sure that my fabric isn't bunching up so that I'm not sewing more than what I'm supposed to, because then you'll have to get the seam ripper out and you don't want to do that. So just take it slow. Be sure to watch your seam allowance as you go around. You're going to do a whole lot of turning of this top as you go, just to make sure everything stays nice and smooth. Okay, and as we come to the end here, when we get back to the beginning of our stitch, we're going to back stitch to lock that in. And as you can see, your first stitching is done all the way around. So if you want to go around and do your second stitching, you can, and then trim your seam allowance down to right below your notch there. which is going to be pretty close to your second stitching if you are putting a second stitching there. If not, just still go ahead and trim below there and then press your seam allowances as the instructions tell you to. So let's go ahead and do the other side. Okay, so for our second sleeve, it's going to be a little bit different and a lot easier. It's almost identical to sewing a pair of pants together. So this is if you were doing like the crotch area of sewing it together. So you would start from this corner, sew all the way around until you get to the other corner. And if you are choosing to do that second seam, you just go back and sew again about 1/8 of an inch away from that seam. And then you're going to trim it down underneath your notches, just like you do the other one. So let's go ahead and sew this one together. Okay, as I said before, stitch again if you choose to, 1/8 of an inch in, then trim your seams down and press as the instructions tell you to. Okay, so for this part, we're just going to stay at the sewing machine because what we're going to do is we are going to narrow hem the neck and upper edge of the right sleeve, and then we're going to sew it. So just the same as you did the opening that's right here, that's going to show up in the front, that cutout, we are going to do the same thing with the upper edge of that, okay, which is the neck. And then we're going to take it on around to where that sleeve is. This is the sleeve with the cutout, the part that hangs off of the shoulder. So you're just going to narrow hem like you did before, and you can start at your seam line here if you choose to fold it in at about 5/8 of an inch, and then take and fold that edge in, fold it all the way in, and then pin. And once you have done that all the way around the neck edge and over the upper edge of the right sleeve, then you're going to sew that down on your sewing machine just like you did before of the cutout here. So go ahead and get that narrow hem done, and then we're going to go ahead and stitch it down. Okay, so once you have gotten all of your pins in, or your clips, however you are holding that narrow hem together, you're going to take and go to the edge of this as close as possible to your inner seam of this, and you are going to stitch all the way around. Once you get back around here, you are going to back stitch to lock that in. And after that, all you have to do is hem your sleeves and your top, and you are finished. Okay, and now that you have gotten your neckline, that narrow hem done, and that right shoulder done, then you are ready to hem your sleeves. And using a zigzag stitch or a straight stitch, it's up to you. I will be using a zigzag stitch to hem my sleeves, and you're going to hem the bottom of your top also. After that, you are done. You can give it a good press, especially at the neckline, to kind of seal those stitches in and to kind of flatten it smooth, and your top is done. And depending on the type of fabric that you use, the type of knit, if it's thin enough, there are still some cool days of spring. So this would be perfect to wear for this time of year. And yeah, just have fun in your newly made off the shoulder top. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been helpful. Let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you again in the next video. Have a great one. Bye-bye.